Max here. Sorry about the lateness there. I had a little bit of a technical difficulty, so I was trying to get set up. So here we are, putting it on live chat so it's not on slow chat, and trying to catch up here on the chat. It's not letting me catch up on the chat. Why is that? I don't know why. Okay. Well, greetings everyone. I see that several of you are in here already, which is great. I see Cody, Dryden Conway, and for some reason I can't get out to all the rest of the chats. I don't know why, but it's not working for me. But I see Midnight Mint, Yanet, Soriano, and let's see who else. Carter's Critters is in here. HC Aqua. Excellent. So I'm going to put some shrimp tails in with these dairy cows because they like the shrimp tails. We just had some pad thai. Oh look, it didn't take them long to figure out where the snacks are. And look who else is in the house. Fried dough. Oh, I like that name. It's funny. Okay, I'm going to throw those in there. And Gordius, greetings. All right, so let's see, what did... Can wait till you have some red-sided garter snakes. And I do. I have some. Have you seen those? Oh, Powerful Lance, you made it. And Phoebe Buckingham. Hey, greetings. So, let's see what we can get. So far, we only have one of the dairy cows nibbling. But, oh, no, we got two of them. One's dragging some of it off. And Slav Pepe's in the house. Awesome. I don't know how exciting it's going to get, folks. We'll see if they decide to eat a ton of them and have a feeding frenzy, or if it's going to be a little more slow. We'll see. But we can adapt, right? We can do other things too. Salvo Smith is in the house. Nice to see you. Cha-Cha, hi from Rochester, New York. Awesome. Father Fish and Slav Pepe. These are shrimp tails. We had some shrimp in our Thai recipe for dinner tonight, and so I get to keep the tails and feed them to the isopods because they love them. They're a great way to get them some chitin. They recycle the nutrients in the chitin, and there's usually a little bit of extra, shrimp flesh attached to them as well, so they get that too, and it's great. It's a good nutritious thing for them. So I'm just dumping a little bit into the other vivariums, or the isopod enclosures here. And, oh, they're starting to pile up on there. Nice. I don't know how to say your name, but Uliha Armstrong, you have powder isopods? Awesome. Yeah, I love the powder blues, the powder oranges, the whiteouts. I've got the 3 color morphs so far, and I'm isolating what is probably the same morph as Oreo Crumble of the powder isopods as well. Let's see, does that look okay if I zoom in a bit like that? You can see them a little bit better. So, Scott H in the house, hey, welcome. Konak Young in the house too. And Aquaballs, hello. And, okay, Gordius, I would like to get some isopods soon. Do you have any recommendations? Kind of depends on what you want them for. I'm glad you want to get into isopods. Let's talk about what you want them for. If you want them for pets, it's hard to beat these dairy cows, I'm telling you. They're in my top 5 lists for pet isopods for sure, because they're so active. They get fairly big. They breed fast. They're great. I love their colors. Well, their pattern, I guess, more kind of a black and white thing, but it's cool. Zebra pill bugs are great too. Those are like my top 2 recommendations if you want them for pets. If you're looking for a cleanup crew, we may need to talk about something else. See what's going on, so let me know. And Itty Bitty Ladybug Leezen's in the house. Nice to see you there. Make It Kate, welcome. Glad to see so many of you back. Scott H is saying the cows are doing great. They devoured a snake skin. Awesome. I just sent Scott some dairy cows. What was it? Was it last week? Had a big order going out last week. A big bunch of orders going out. So, yeah, I think it was, wasn't it? That's awesome. Glad they're doing so well. And fried dough. Got some morning geckos a few weeks ago, and they were very shy. Did you think they would be out more eventually? You know what? I asked the very same question when I first got morning geckos, and this has been my experience. It does take them a while. If you feed them consistently, especially live food, but any food, but especially live food, consistently at the same time during the day, they will anticipate it and they will come out more. It'll take them a while to get used to that. It's not going to happen overnight, but they will start coming out more. That will help a lot. Just having them in a place where you're going to be around a lot will also help, because they do tend to be shy, but once they realize you're not going to hurt them and you are actually the person who brings food, they will tend to come out more. I can see my adult morning geckos out, and my babies, all the time. The population does matter too. I don't know how many you have or in what size enclosure, but I have 6, I have between 4 and 6 in a 12 by 12 by 18 enclosure, and between 4 and 6, that's what I said, right? Yes, between 4 and 6, and of the adults in there, and in my little 8 by 8 by 12 enclosure for my juveniles, I think I have around 13 of them in there right now, something like that, and they're around all the time, day or night, doesn't matter. Partly because I feed them during the day and they get used to it, so that will help. It takes a while, but it helps. Okay, so Scott, it was last week, and they're already eating a snake skin. That's nice. That means they're settled in, so that's great. Salvo Smith, kind of the same thing as feeding them the shrimp tails. They get a lot of the same nutrients, even though chitin and keratin are not exactly the same. They're similar enough. Okay, and Salvo. They're called dairy cows basically because of the pattern. They have the white with the dark spots, just like many of the dairy cows do. It's kind of a funny name for them, but I like it. And Gordius. Also, the Vinegaroon is doing great. Had her for almost a year now. Awesome. And Jordan Zavala. Nice to see you here. We've got a pretty good group going on. We've got 26 so far. 27. Not bad at all. We've got 15 likes. If you want to do a like spike, I'll count down to 5 and we'll do it. Let's do it. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Oh, yep, we got some more likes. Awesome. That's always helpful. Helps more people see the video. And let's see. Am I caught up? I'm pretty much caught up on the chat, and thank you for the like spike. That helps. So Cognac Young's rubber duckies are doing well. Excellent. I think I was able to arrest the crash of my colony. It wasn't doing so hot all of a sudden. It was sort of declined fairly quickly. But I looked in there, was it this morning? And I saw one hanging out, and I think there are other ones in there doing well. So I don't have a lot left. I had 10 or 11, something like that when I started out, and I don't have that many, but we'll see how it goes. I can learn from failure. Okay, so fried dough have 2 morning geckos and a 36-gallon with 2 dart frogs. Feed them fruit flies sometimes. That is the only time they'll come out during the day, so I'll continue to do that. Yeah, especially if you pick a certain time during the day, it seems to help. So that's good. Evan, good afternoon to you. How are you doing? I'm doing better than I was last time. You may remember, those of you who were in the last few live streams, I've had a nasty cough, and it is nearly gone. I think the doctors figured it out, and I'm feeling so much better. So, yeah, I can say I'm happy that I'm not having so many coughing fits, and I'm confident that I probably won't cough much in this video. So that's exciting for me since it's been months. So Slav Pepe, is it safe to gather wild moss and use it in a dairy cow colony? Well, it is not without some risk. You could introduce things you don't want in your vivarium that way. One thing you can do though, like when Heather Jensen, one of our subscribers, sent me some moss, some wild moss that she had collected, and some liverworts and things like that, lovely things. I wanted to treat it so I didn't have to worry about introducing things. So what I did, I took a gallon plastic bag, put the moss in it, took a 2-ounce deli cup, and put a little chunk of dry ice in it. You just go to the grocery store and you buy a pound of dry ice or whatever. You break off a piece. So the piece I broke off was probably about the size of a walnut, maybe even smaller than that. I put it in the bag, and then I zipped up the bag, and the bag filled up, and it was leaking just enough of the carbon dioxide so that the bag wasn't popping, but it was filling up and it was fairly taut. And I left it like that overnight. Basically what that does, because the dry ice is sitting in the little deli cup, it's not touching any of the moss, it just releases all this gas, and that small piece is not enough to cool the airspace enough to damage the moss. So the moss is fine. The CO2 in there, of course, is good for plants. It's not going to kill them overnight, but it is going to kill little snails or little mites or, any number of little worms or anything that you might have in there that you don't necessarily want in your vivarium. And that's what I did. I gassed it like that and then put it in my vivarium, and they were fine. So that's what I would suggest doing if you want to be really safe. And Cody says, I just moved into a new apartment and trying to decide on a new isopod or invertebrate to get. Cool. What isopods do you have now? I think I remember you saying you had some. Gordius. Oh, well, I'm glad you didn't get the coughing fit. It's nasty. And Make It Kate had success freezing the moss first. Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Most things wouldn't, a lot of those things would die being frozen. But the moss, of course, if you're collecting it locally, it's used to being frozen. So that's a good idea, too. Thank you, Make It Kate, for sharing that. So Micah Bortz says, how strong these animals get? Strong like crab or weak like bird? I know they have armor, but armor does not mean strong. Armor mean coward, but coward not mean weak. So I want to know. Good question. I guess it depends on what you're measuring them against. I mean, these isopods are pretty tough, but there are spiders that are, have evolved to eat them, and toads can eat them and things like that. So the armor, I'm sure it protects them from a lot of things. Some spiders can't get through it, for example, but others don't have a problem with it, especially isopod hunters, spiders. TJ's Exotics, welcome. Try the sublimation for the moss next time. The first time I got moss, didn't treat it and it put mites in the culture. Yeah, the sublimation was a pretty easy way to do it. For those of you who might not know, dry ice doesn't actually melt. It goes from a solid straight to a gas, and so that process is called sublimation. So, and yeah, some people even do that, the dry ice carry nature. Some people even use the dry ice method in a vivarium. The first place I heard of it, I think, there was a local frogger. He's the one I got my first isopods from, so this is a while ago, a number of years ago. Anyway, he mentioned that he ended up with a black widow inside one of his dart frog vivariums, and I'm not sure that he knew how it got there, but he couldn't really get it out because of where it was back behind the decor or whatever, and he didn't want it to be there, and so he took out his frogs and gassed the vivarium that way. He just put plastic wrap over the top and put some dry ice in there in a bowl or whatever overnight, and that got rid of it. Got rid of almost everything. Unfortunately, it would get rid of it. The springtails and the isopods and everything had to restart there. But it doesn't kill the plants, which is nice. I'm not sure what sort of influence it has on the bacterial colonies. I got to tell you though, I'm loving the fact that these isopods are under a bright light right now and they don't care. It's one of my favorite things about dairy cows. They don't care. They're the easiest to film in bright light, at least so far. Let's see. So scrolling back. Oh, Poop Rooster. We've been talking about isopods for a while on the comments. And thank you, TJ's Exotics. So do you need isopods for your bioactive terrarium? Well, certainly they're one of the best options. You can get by with springtails depending on which species you have in there. Some species that you have in your bioactive terrarium, it is better just to use springtails. With certain invertebrates like millipedes, you don't want to use isopods because isopods will eat freshly molted millipedes if given a chance. But with a lot of reptiles and so on, amphibians, isopods are a great addition. You can't really go wrong with them, as well as some invertebrates. Okay. Yeah, and the quarantine in a separate container can help because a lot of those things will die off during that fried dough. Yeah. So TJ's Exotics, you're going to start your own isopod colony. Awesome. Any particular species? And Alejandro Sanchez. Yeah, thank you. These are pretty happy because they're eating shrimp tails. And isopods love shrimp tails. They're healthy food for them, so that's why they're so happy, I think. Gordius would be so happy if he got a black widow and some moss. Okay, Reed Trevarthen. I just got a starter of dairy cows. I'm anxiously awaiting Monkey. About how long does it take to see little babies running around? Well, if you started with mature individuals, and I'm not talking full-size individuals, I'm talking, most of the ones you see here are either full-size or close to it in the video here, and they're a little over a half an inch long, maybe. But if you have individuals that are a third of their maximum size, even, you're going to have babies really soon. I mean, you could have babies in a week. You could have, because there could be females carrying full pouches right now. So it could be any time. It could be a week, it could be 2 weeks, it could be a month. If you don't have them within a month, I would start worrying, probably a little bit, because they're so prolific. So I would expect to see them within a few weeks, and if not, then you might want to look into what's going on. Let's see. So Curtis Brown, hey, welcome. Have you ever thought about going out in the wild and catching some sort of insect or isopod and keeping a species that isn't available in the insect community? Well, I do wild catch insects occasionally. This year, for example, I went out and caught some velvet ants. I caught, let's see, how many? I caught 2, and my wife and daughters caught another one for me when I was not at home that ended up on our front porch. So, yeah, I have done that a couple times. I've collected a few other insects of various types too. So, yes, and in many of those cases, I want to get a breeding colony going. Of course, with velvet ants, breeding captivity doesn't really work. So we have to be careful and not over-collect. But yes, I've collected beetles to keep and things like that. So yeah, totally. I'm trying to think if there's other cases that I've done this. Other situations. I'm looking around the room, seeing what I've got. This summer I tried to collect blue death fanning beetle because I had some already, and I ended up getting some more from someone who sent me some. So I have some from several sources because I'm trying to get a captive breeding population going. But I tried to collect one. I was in a place where they live, and I contacted the local authorities. There was a park. I contacted a ranger in a state park and asked him about it to make sure it was okay, and he said it would be fine for me to collect one. So I tried to do that, but it wasn't the right time of year yet. They were late this year. They didn't wake up until a month or two after that, so I wasn't able to collect any. But I tried. Okay. So Make It Kate, thoughts on bioactive for a Pac-Man frog? Oh yes, I would do it. I've been thinking about setting one up someday myself, and I would do a couple of things I'm thinking. With isopods like Porcella laevis, you might get away with it because the frog might not eat them all because they breed so fast. I'm not sure. But I would probably use a small dwarf isopod that the Pac-Man frog's not going to be interested in eating, like dwarf whites or something like that. And then I would, this is my idea anyway, with the bioactive, because the frogs can dig a lot and maybe kick up roots and things like that, damage roots of plants and topple plants over anything. I would probably put a wall of something like Ficus pumila up against the back, have some cork bark in the back or something, and have a bunch of Ficus pumila growing up the back of the vivarium, because they're going to root right along the edge of the cork bark and then climb and attach themselves to that, so the frog's not going to be able to knock it down. So those are some thoughts I've had on that. I think it would be pretty cool. I like that idea of doing something like that. What do you think? So Scott H. Dairy cows are quite shy at this point, but it's a new culture. And the new cultures are always like that to some extent. They're always shyer. So I wouldn't worry too much. It's just, that just seems to happen, like you say. And it sounds like you already know that because you mentioned it. But yeah, it's going to take a little while, but it doesn't take that long, because in a few months they'll be breeding like crazy. You'll have a lot of them. So scrolling back to catch up here. An LMT, where do you get some of these guys? The dairy cows? Dairy cows, just about anybody who carries a decent amount of isopods you can get them from. I'm kind of on break from most shipping of isopods right now because it's too cold. Of course, the weather's kind of a little better lately, but in February I'm going to start shipping again in earnest. I'm shipping at a reduced rate now. Most of it is express shipping. I do dry goods shipping, of course, and some hardy species like Daphnia I'll ship, but as far as isopods, I'm not doing a whole lot right now because of the weather. Okay. Let's see. Oh, Carry Nature. Yeah, you can use the raw shrimp from your Christmas dinner. These were cooked shrimp. I've used both raw shrimp and cooked shrimp. It doesn't seem to matter. Isopods love it. Just take the tails off. Make sure they don't have any sauce on them or anything. I don't know how they're being eaten, but just put them, make sure they don't have any sauce on them and they'll be fine. So, TJ's Exotic raising dubias. I wish I could sometimes. They're easier to keep than crickets, but I'm not allowed. But yeah, that's a great live food to be raising, and they can also be pets. Sterling Marvin just purchased a starter colony of Armadillidium klugi Montenegro. Excited to venture into the isopod world. Awesome. That is a great species. Really, really colorful species. I'm going to take a second to show you all my colony. Everyone, really quick. My colony's starting to perk back up after a die off a while ago. Let's see what we can see here. Under this piece of wood. Yeah, this is my klugi colony, doing pretty well. Most of these are young ones, as you can see a few large ones kicking around. But they're doing pretty well. I'm excited that the Armadillidium klugi have made a comeback. And most of these are, maybe 3 or 4 millimeters long. They're not very big. But they're still beautiful even when they're tiny. So there you go. Armadillidium klugi. I don't know if there's any under this cork bark, not really. Oh, a bunch of them moved. They moved to the top when I moved their piece of cork bark around. So there you go. A bunch there too. Okay, back to the dairy cows because they're active. More active. There we go. Now back to the chat for me. Where were we? Let's see. Okay, catching up. Roachant, greetings, and thanks, Pepe, about the cough. I really appreciate that. Jordan, how is your Isoviva box looking now? I have been checking on it, and the little, the cookies and cream or whatever, Oreo crumbles, whatever they're called, the little isopods that I'm trying to isolate that are similar to that other strain that's out there, they are doing well. I haven't seen any breeding yet, but I'm sure I will soon. But I've seen the ones that I put in there kicking around doing their thing, so I'm excited. I really like the setup. I think it looks great. It's still looking great, and I was worried about possibly fungus gnats being an issue in there, but so far not much of an issue, so that's exciting. Not that that's necessarily going to last or not. We'll see. I'm going to keep watching it. Let's see. Just trying to catch up. So. These get fairly big for an isopod, Mycoboarte. They get fairly big for an isopod, up to close to an inch. So fairly large. But I don't think they get much bigger than that. Chevy Fish, welcome. And make it Kate. Like the idea with the ficus. Maybe some small plaited plants with the roots buried. Yeah, you could probably do some of them. I'm thinking some of the dwarf snake plants could work in there. I don't think the frog could do much to those. Like a Hanai variety or one of the others like that. And let's see, what else? I would be interested in trying some Korean rock fern because they can stand being sat upon just fine and they bounce back. Okay, let's see. Catching up, everybody. Trying it. So, let's see, where are we? Okay, Jordan Safala. Also, I ordered one of your shirts. Awesome! That is so cool. Thank you for doing that. That is, I haven't had a lot of shirt orders lately, and I've been wondering why my shirts just look awful or something. So they don't, because you ordered one. So that's awesome. Thank you. And Evan Volkow, how are your duckies and magic potions going? Those are the two I've had the hardest time with, honestly. I only started out with 6 magic potions. They were really young at the time when I got them. They all grew up and seemed to be fine. I thought, oh, I'm going to get reproduction. And I didn't. And some of them died off. And I don't know if that means that they were all, males, or they were all females, or what's going on. I don't know. I have a few left, but I never started out with that many to begin with. So I don't know what's going to happen there. And the duckies, I had an update on those a while ago, but I don't have as many as I used to have either. So some of them died off. The 2 that are the hardest for me to deal with, I guess. But I'll learn. I'll figure it out. So many of the other isopods are doing well for me that I'll figure it out at some point. Okay, yeah, cool. Carry Nature. I hope your isopods like it. If you just have a few, you don't need much. Just take a little teeny piece. Oh yeah. I'm glad to hear, Make It Kate, that your Klugai are doing well. Finally, yeah, that's kind of how mine were. I've had boom and bust, I think, 3 times, and now they're starting to do well. So, creepy host salesman, going to start selling your Klugai soon. I'd love to order some for you. Well, if things go well in February, I will probably start, because that's when my shipping is back, full force. Oh, and looks like I just got a super chat. But where is my super chat? I don't see it. Where's my super chat? Oh, it's just down at the bottom. Well, thank you so much, Jordan. I really appreciate that. That is awesome. Usually the super chats bounce up and I can see them. I must be really behind on the chat, but that is so cool. I really appreciate that, and I really appreciate your buying a t-shirt. Both of those things are going to help support the channel and help it grow. I'm really excited about things like that. We've had people joining the Patreon page lately too, so it's coming along. We can do some really cool things with your help. So thank you, Jordan, and thank you, everyone. And Midnight Mint, you wanted isopods so badly that it cost $55 because of the shipping. Wish there was a different way to buy them. You don't sell any, do you? Actually, I do, although I'm not selling many until February because it costs a lot to ship them. That's why. In this time of year, because I have to do it the express shipping, just so they don't freeze. So there is that, but I do sell them. So, Carry Nature, do superworms turn into soldier beetles? I had a couple pupated this summer that are hanging out for their retirement. Well, the beetles that they produce are a lot like, excuse me, a lot like Pinacate beetles or large desert darkling beetles. They look a lot like that. They do require a little bit more humidity and whatnot, but not a lot more, actually. You can keep superworm beetles in with leopard geckos in bioactive enclosures. I've seen it. So they do look a lot like those kinds of beetles. And Greg Collins, would you recommend the Isoviva for Porcelia expansis? Any particular vent configuration? Well, expansis do get pretty large, but I bet you could do that with a fairly small colony and kind of grow them out in there and then move them out when they get bigger, when the colony gets bigger. But I would do probably the 4 vent. With most of the large most of the large Spanish Porcelio, that's what I would recommend, is the 4 vents. Okay. I'm really trying to catch up, everybody. Sorry. Okay. Okay, cool. And thank you, Evan. Dragon Udo, waiting on my dairy cows in the mail. This will be my first isopods as well. Awesome! I can't do better than dairy cows to start out with. And Midnight Mint. Yeah, any isopods or springtails cost 55 or more, basically, at this point, this time of year.
Bisogna partire fra quanti minuti?
See. Okay. All right, everybody. I'm going to have to wrap up in just a minute. I'm going to try to catch up on the chat really quick, and then I got to go. So my daughter has a concert. Can't miss that. So let's see. Trying to just focus on the chat that's actually to me. Keep any mantis? I don't have any currently. I raised up a mantis this year from an egg case that hatched here and grew it up, but it died in November. That's, you get November, December, something like that, and that's when they die. So, okay. Right. And thank you, Midnight Mint. Dragonudo's question, what was the kind of humidity dairy cows like in temperature? Room temperatures are fine. They can take it a little cool. They can take it warm. They don't seem to care. As far as ventilation and humidity, they don't need a lot of ventilation. They need a little. They're not one of the ones that need a ton of ventilation. They do fine without a lot. So I just have 2 holes in the side of this, this 1-inch hole in the side of this bin here, and then another 1-inch hole on the other side. That's all I got, and they do totally fine with that. They could probably get by with less, honestly. They don't need a ton. And moist side in the vivarium or enclosure, and then a dry side, and they do great. Okay, they don't require a heat source. Room temperature's enough. Even down into the 60s is fine. And all right. Okay, thank you everyone so much. I appreciate the super chat, Jordan, and I appreciate everybody coming in and all your support, the likes, whatnot. Very, very appreciated. And everybody have a great day. And for those of you celebrating holidays like I am, happy holidays.